Hey, Reluctant Preppers, you could have been watching this video the moment it came out.
By going to healingyourself.life and subscribing to our new sister channel, Healing Yourself. See you there. Healingyourself.life provides information for awareness, educational, and support purposes only and does not diagnose or prescribe treatment for any medical condition. Viewers are encouraged to do their own due diligence and consult with their own medical caregivers before making personal treatment decisions. Welcome back to healingyourself.life. I'm your host, Dunagun Kaiser.
And I'm Melody Kaiser.
And we're here to talk about a distressing situation that we made it through and survived, and to offer some helpful tips that'll help you get through that. And that's about the risks of colonoscopies and how you can get some serious side effects and how we found some natural treatments that were able to pull us out of that. So the story starts, as many of ours tend to, with Lyme disease, which I contracted in the woods from a tick and brought home and was generous enough to pass on to my wife, which they don't tell you you can, but you can. And so because we're both chronic Lyme survivors, this is something we've been battling for a long time. We had over a year of antibiotic therapy, which really weakened our immune systems, because your gut and your intestines and the natural flora that exists in your intestines is actually the place that your body contacts the outside world more than even outside of you is. More of the outside of you is inside of you than you see from the outside. And so both of us have noticed that our immune systems in general and our ability to resist catching things that we get exposed to is reduced since then. So we have to be very watchful and cautious about exposure. Well, it turned out that...
Well, I think one of the other things, just to say, the antibiotics did was not only lower our immune system, but also, and then we said it in another video, but we got candida, which also I think, I'm not sure about that, but lowers your immunity too, because your body's fighting off many different things. And so anyway, just to add that.
And in one of the treatments that we tried for our Lyme was a particular herbal protocol. This happened to be one called Vital Plan. And I think that particularly for me, I was intolerant of that and would get pretty bad stomach aches and some nausea. And it turned out I started having low blood iron, which has happened in the past, and it can with Lyme. But this was like worse than usual, like more rapidly. Like instead of a year between needing iron infusions, or 2 or 4 years, it was like 2 months and that kind of thing.
I think took you a little longer time. I think I had the intuitive thing to say, hey, the Vital Plan doesn't seem to be working for you. I was okay with it, but you started getting stomach aches and you weren't relating it to that. And I really was. And I said, I think we really need to get off that. But you stayed on it longer than I think you should have.
Yeah, I was stuck on it as a hope that it would simplify our regimen, because our regimen of so many different, we had good success with nattokinase combined with LB core, which is the Stephen Herod Buhner Lyme protocol for combining 5 herbs. And that seemed to be working pretty well for us. But we had a lot of other things we were doing, tinctures and this and that, and it just seemed like the whole thing added up to so much when you put it all together that I thought maybe if we just take this one thing, it might help. But Melody kept noticing that I wasn't tolerating it well, and I was just stubbornly sticking with it longer than I probably should have, given, just pay attention to what your body's telling you. And what happened was I ended up being concerned, because I had a previous history of Crohn's disease, that maybe this bleeding which I was happening internally could have been related to something that needed a recurrence of my Crohn's. So better have a look with a colonoscopy. Having interviewed Dr. Jay Nielsen in the past, he had expressed one of the news stories which he's flashed up to us before was that even properly sanitized, whatever that means, colonoscopes can pass infectious diseases from one patient to another.
One being C. diff.
And C. diff is a particularly dangerous and can be fatal bacterial infection you can get in your intestines. So I was concerned. I consulted with him about it. He said, yeah, you might want to be careful. So I consulted with a GI about it and said, I don't know if I want to go through this colonoscopy, but we really wanted to find out the source of the internal bleeding, but we didn't want to risk that. He said, oh, it's very low risk. So especially since it was nearing the end of the year and we were under the time pressure of our insurance deductible, which had been satisfied that year, would have been make the procedure much cheaper to do in December, much more expensive to do after that. I thought, all right, we'll go ahead and do it. We're about to travel internationally. I just want to get this thing done. So went in and subjected to colonoscopy and came through that pretty well. They bounced back. No problem for the colonoscopy, and the results were all clear, looks good and clean inside.
But I will say, I told you needed to rest today, and he didn't take my advice. He went right back to work. And I think that also didn't help you because
Wore me down.
You were really, Dunagun was very worn down. And
this is the theme of stubborn Dunagun versus wise Melody, I think.
Well, anyway, I'm just saying.
No, I can't deny it. It was the day
he really should have rested, and you didn't. So.
And after a few more days, started feeling a lot worse. Like I had been feeling just fine prior to that, but started getting nausea, severe loss of appetite, and stomach aches. And I didn't want to think about food. So and we're getting on an airplane to go to Berlin,
right?
And we were like even at the airport, like buying food to take on.
I forgot that chills. You were having chills,
right.
and
fevers and chills right before leaving.
Awful.
And I even so we headed off, but we were wearing, to protect ourselves from catching anything additional, we wore those antiviral and antibacterial breathing masks on the plane.
And there were people coughing all over the place. It was amazing, I guess, because it was December. People were coughing.
At the gate, in the airplane, in the airport. It makes you notice. It's kind of like when you're looking for something, you see it a lot. When you're kind of guarded about, I don't want to catch anything, we noticed people coughing a lot on that flight, but we were wearing our masks and it felt awkward, but oh well. We thought at least we're taking care of ourselves. So we arrived in Germany, and I was just in terrible shape. I had chills and fevers and nausea and stomach aches, and diarrhea started. And the diarrhea was I'm quite experienced with it from Crohn's disease, and this was something like I'd almost never experienced before. I mean, I was just like very frequent and trips, and I couldn't eat, and everything just went right through me. And the any attempt we had of, hey, we don't want to have me losing weight again, let's throw more calories in, doesn't help. I could tell that my whole digestive system was just out of commission, shut down. So we started some ordinary over-the-counter remedies that you could get. We had brought along some, like Pepto-Bismol, and that did nothing, even no matter what doses I was taking. Also, in the past, and I'm going to show you how to do this real quick because this is usually really successful, but this one was not an ordinary treatment, but not an ordinary bout of diarrhea. But for ordinary bouts of diarrhea, something that's been very effective for me in the past is this herbal treatment called yellow root, and we purchased this online. It's actually these yellow roots, and you can get them from Pain Mountain Farms. Here we go, Pain Mountain Farms, and you can find them online. And when they give you the herbs, you can just you can cut those up with some heavy-duty shears, put them in boiling hot water for 20 minutes, make a strong tea, and drink that. But in order to have it either at work or while traveling, it wasn't handy, so I made it into a tincture. And the way you do that is you take some neutral spirits, in this case vodka, and you pour it into a jar, and you fill it up with whatever herbs you want. In this case, I clipped a whole bunch of the herbs with a tin snips and had this full of it.
Was the yellow root raw when you did it, or did you still heat them up?
No. This is just dried. Yeah.
So you just stick them in there.
The pure dried fresh herb.
Okay, you stick them in there.
In the alcohol, and you can sit it for a couple weeks. I left it a little bit longer than that, but anyway.
But I think it was over a month.
And I decanted it then into a dropper-sized bottle, and you can take that, you can wrap it up and take it on travel. So that's what I did. And long story short, that usually works great for ordinary diarrhea.
Right.
Didn't touch this stuff. This stuff was like worse than I ever had. That's why we were suspicious that this really could have been C. diff. And if you think about the potential seriousness of, you're going into a hospital or serious clinic environment, they're using a colonoscope, which they have used inside somebody else's body, and that person might not have been in for a routine wellness screening. That might have been somebody who had a serious disease, and then they're washing it, however they do that, supposedly okay, and then putting it into you. But whammo, I got sicker than I have ever been, and believe me, I've been around the book on that. So again, finally in Germany, we were desperate, and Melody said, we're in Europe, and they're really good at herbal apothecaries here. So we looked in the local directory there and found just a couple miles away. We took an Uber over there and consulted with a very wise herbalist.
Very, very
knowledgeable. And she, as soon as I described the problem, she ran over. She pulled out this.
It was a big paper bag. I mean,
of
size.
Blue malva flowers. You can call them mallow or malva. And this is actually from Germany. The bag that she gave me was much bigger than this, but this is a smaller pouch we purchased. Here, we bought a whole bunch of them once we got back to the States.
Yeah, you can get them online from Amazon. If you ever run into a problem, it's quite healing and soothing to the gut, actually. Very soothing to the gut.
And mallow, as it's in the family of like marshmallow, and it's also called malva. So if you order blue malva flowers or blue mallow flowers, and then you take one of these French press coffee pots. If this is one way that you can do it. I mean, you can just boil them in a pot if you want to, but you go ahead and put the blossoms in there, fill it up with boiling water, press it down, let it do it. Actually, let it
steep,
sit for like 20 minutes or so. Then you press it down and decant it out.
And the longer you do that, it's called an infusion, and that makes it much stronger herb.
And then you drink the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
One
it wasn't a small
dose,
thing.
And it's a little bit slippery and thick, a little bit like that. But I started getting better within 2 days.
Yeah.
And by 4
amazing.
days, I was tip top, and I who had been unable to even eat much at all prior to that. We were eating.
Hungry.
I was eating platters of bratwurst.
You know, the other thing we forgot to say, dear, was they also gave you massive doses of probiotic.
Yep.
And then also they said we had a lovely buffet at our hotel, and they had apples there, and specifically it was a green apple, and you would peel it and let it brown.
Shave it.
Oxidize.
Shave the flesh.
Yeah,
she said that's an interesting recipe. She said take a green apple.
So it was the flesh, not the peel. You would peel it.
You shave the flesh in a pile, and then let it oxidize, let it turn brown, which it did pretty quickly, and then eat that.
Yeah.
So that and the massive doses of probiotic and the blue malva infusion and this mysterious horrible disease and the fevers and the chills and the diarrhea and the stomach pains and nausea were all gone.
Yeah, sorry. The other thing I think that was very helpful was they had a sauna. There was no hot tub, no pool,
hotel,
which is chlorine. They had none of that, but they had a sauna and a steam room. And we did that religiously for several days to raise our temperature. In fact, in our house we have a sauna, as some of you know, and we also take our temperatures to make sure we're getting it up there. And usually I usually take it because I'm usually run a lower temperature because of thyroid issues, and I take it, and usually I can get up to 103, 102, which is good.
The other benefit we had recently of the sauna was when I caught a flu,
right?
And it was getting so serious they thought it was going to turn into pneumonia. They said
if you have to go to the clinic.
I had 103 fever. They said if it doesn't break within the next 24 hours, your fever, you got to go in and get a chest X-ray. So we said let's hit this thing with everything we got. So we went in the sauna and cranked it up, and she's way tougher than I am in the sauna, but I stuck it out as much as I could. Got my temperature from the 103 up to 105.8.
Right.
And in the morning, I was all better.
Yeah, it had broken. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
So,
and even it was weird because sometimes you were getting chills even in the sauna, even though you were so hot.
Yeah.
You was getting chills.
The other thing was we wore those masks on the plane to Germany.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we forgot.
I think we did.
Or whatever. But on the way home, didn't.
No.
And then
I got
pretty sick.
And for people with maybe a good immune system and a normal immune system, you wouldn't have to do the masks. But for us, it really makes a difference. And we, like we said in previous ones, we clean the hotel room and we clean our area where we're sitting just so we don't get all the germs.
Wiping down with antibacterial wipes on the plane.
Right. But anyway,
the airborne stuff you're still going to be exposed to.
I got really sick, and I firmly believe it was from not wearing a mask because people were coughing so much and they were sick.
The other thing when you're traveling is you're often eating out a lot.
That's true.
And you have no control. In fact, that was the German restaurant.
One of our restaurants that we actually like to go to.
It
was an Australia.
Argentinian.
You're right, Argentinian
steak restaurant.
Yeah.
And we love their food, and it was really
kangaroo.
handy.
If you ever have a chance to try kangaroo. Honestly, it was really good.
However, one of the guys who was a server there and was like rolling the silverware with their cloth napkins and doing all that prep was coughing and coughing.
Really sick.
And I finally, we ordered our food, and then I went up to the guy and I said, because my wife and I don't want to get sick, and I'm trying this in my best stumbling German, and since you are sick, could we have a different person bring us our dinner? And he said sure.
Yeah, so, they were very accommodating about it.
That's one of the things you don't have as much control over, but you can try to be watchful.
You don't know if the cook is coughing all over your food.
There's a chain of custody there that you don't get to see all of it.
Yeah.
So this was our quick update on how you can, it's a cautionary tale about colonoscopies.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale on being too stubborn and not always listening to your wife when you should. It's a cautionary tale about if your ordinary remedies for getting back from something like serious diarrhea aren't working, you really can get some good help from things like yellow root.
The yellow root, I will caution, and I don't know
flowers.
about the blue malva, but the yellow root you can't take long term.
Right, it's for short-term
use. Which is normally, if you get diarrhea, you will use it for short-term use.
Get you back right again.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, we are not saying that nobody should get a colonoscopy. What we are saying is that there are some alternatives you're probably not being told about, and there are some risks you're probably not being told about. So help to find out about that. For one thing, if your doctor is saying you need a routine screening just because it's been 5 years or just because you're over the age of 45 or 50 or something, that doesn't mean you need, if you're not sick and there's not suspected of being sick, it doesn't mean that the only way to check you out is with a colonoscopy.
Right. There's two other options that we've heard of. One is Cologuard, and one is they call it capsule endoscopy. It's a swallowing of a camera. The other one, obviously, the Cologuard, you just send in a stool sample and they can tell
if you're
many
at high
things from
risk,
that.
whether
If
you're at high risk for
right, and then that
colon
would
cancer.
show whether you'd need to do a full colonoscopy. But again, there's the capsule endoscopy, which we think is safer because I don't think they can use, you can't use that twice. It's just, it goes in and goes out and you aren't aware of it. So those are two safer options. But again, if you really feel you need a colonoscopy and they need to be sure because they need to take a sample, that is the only way to do it.
Thanks again for joining
Thank
us here
you.
on HealingYourself.life.
See ya.
Hey, HealingYourself.life viewers.
We need your help in enabling us to continue to create great health videos for you.
So please support our mission by going to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledging any monthly amount you can.
Your pledge will also help us to afford a new Lyme peptide treatment therapy to improve our memory, and we will report on our progress to benefit you and others.
So remember, go to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledge today.
Were you going to tell them to go to patreon.com/healingyourself to pledge to help our memory treatment?
I thought I did. I'll do it. So please go to patreon.com/healingyourself and pledge today.
Thanks.
They say the stock market crashed today.
Yeah, I heard that.
Sounds like people's retirement accounts and savings accounts are going to get bailed into the banks.
Yeah.
Looks like pension plans and Social Security are going to get suspended too.
I know.
Sure, I'm glad we decided to put our money into gold and silver instead.
Me too.
Get your first ounce of silver at spot price and free shipping on any order over $99 at sdbullion.com/rp. Hey, Reluctant Preppers. If you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunagun Kaiser. And you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.